We met Anton in his gallery. That's where we started our tour of the spaces. And his gallery is geared mainly towards it's kind of like a showroom, I suppose, of his work, his most recent work. And that's open to the public. Anybody can go in there. Obviously, it's a commercial gallery, and you can purchase works directly from the gallery. But it was really nice to meet him and to be introduced in this space to him, where he explained some aspects of his business, of his practice as a sculptor. It is a multi-million rand business that he runs, with quite a vast support staff that do a lot of the work for him under his very close instruction. Um, yeah, but it was a particularly enlightening event because we got to meet the man. He is a very deep spiritual man, um, and a lot of the work that he does, in fact, I would almost argue that all of the work he does, in some way, has a either a esoteric or mystical or spiritual aspect to it. Um, yeah, so that was the first part of the tour. I'm going to possibly skip the next slide and go on to slide number 4. Once we'd met Anton Smit and we had had a chance to look at some of his works in the gallery, we were then ushered through into his, not sure what to call it. I would say this office space, maybe his creative space. So this was a room adjacent to the gallery that is his space of creation. That's where he sits and he plans and he draws and he works out what he's going to do. All his source material is there. All the clipboards that you see up there have all got projects that he's busy with. Um, Basically, it's his space of creativity and management. That's where he spends most of his days, in this space, planning and working out, making maquettes, working out the best materials and techniques and processes to get the desired result that he's looking for. So yeah, it was a very interesting space because not only are we seeing maquettes there, but we're also seeing a lot of his experimental works in the space as well, where he's doing small experiments in the office space to work out the appropriate technique and corresponding process. But also what we're seeing here is, like I said, his planning process, which is quite phenomenal. He never does anything just off the cuff. There's an incredibly vast process of planning and organizing and drawing and experimentation before he, in fact, actually gets his guys in the studios outside to start making the works up. So what you're looking at here on this slide, is a maquette that he's busy with, um, and it's made from urethane foam, welded steel rods. And what he's doing with this figure is he's constantly interacting with it, drawing onto it, annotating actually onto the three-dimensional object, removing stuff, adding stuff in, and constantly working and reworking his ideas that he has been planning and drawing in his workbooks. He's taken it into the three-dimensional space now of a maquette. This particular sculpture will then be, once he's happy with it, will then be taken outside, and it will be made up into something a lot bigger. Usually he scales the scale of his work is limitless. I mean, he's created 25-meter high pieces. He's created not 25 meters. It's a bit big, 25 feet maybe. Um, I'd say one of the biggest works that was on that exhibition was probably a 10-meter, 15-meter high figure. It's a massive thing. So he works very big, but at the same time, in his gallery, you'll see that he works very small as well. Um, so there's no particular consistency in his scale. He does what he needs to do to get the end result. We then move to the outside areas, which are his production areas. And he's organized these spaces to deal with very specific aspects of the process. So you'll find one area deals with casting, another area deals with finishing, another area deals with construction and welding, and another area deals with resin work or concrete or cement work. He also makes most of his bases as well. So there's not a warehouse, a kind of studio space that is designated specifically to making the concrete bases that he uses for his sculptures. So just to give you an idea of scale again, on the left-hand side, you've got the lower torso and legs and feet of the figure that he's busy with. Now, that figure is probably going to end up being about 20 meters high easily, with an arm span of about 15 meters, outstretched arm span. So, and that's a massive piece. And the way he would produce that is he would start off with these 25 mil welded dowels, metal steel dowels, to create the inner armature. And then he would probably start using either styrofoam or urethane foam to shape and form the details or the basic structure of the figure. And then he would either coat that with a polyester resin coating and then make a mold and cast it. So he'd make a silicone mold as well. It'd be probably a 2 or 3 piece silicone mold. A piece like that, because of its size, would probably be a multiple mold. I would say at least 5 or 6 pieces. But phenomenal to see his works in the process of being made in these spaces. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at a welded piece that he's busy with, using bits of scrap metal that have been lying around the yard. Yeah, and I think the important thing about this is that he's not just working with one piece at one time. He has at any one point about 15 to 20 sculptures, all in the process of being made in the yards at the time. So, other than sitting in his, working in his office space or studio space, the small studio space, he's also working in the yards, making sure that the guys are producing exactly what he has asked them to do, which is quite a phenomenal job to be micromanaging as well as creating and designing and conceptualizing. We then went into the warehouse where he works with the assemblage of his polyester cast pieces. And these two slides give you a good idea of two works that are in the process of being made still. Um, they they are all polyester resin, so it's a sort of fiberglass resin he uses. And he's basically they're all in the process of being constructed and put together. And you can see what's really struck me as quite significant was the tidiness of the studios. He has quite a particular way of working or getting the guys to work that there's a constant cleaning up process happening, so that the studio space is tidy. This certainly wasn't tidied up just for our visit. This is the way it is when there's a normal daily process. So, at 3 or 4 intervals during the day, the guys are tidying up, putting stuff in bins, and making sure that the working areas are free of any clutter that might interrupt, disrupt, or adversely affect the production process. So these are two views of the same piece. Just gives you an idea of the thickness of the polyester resin casting. It's not more than about 5, maximum 6 or 7 millimeters thick. If you have a look at the neck area, if you look at the thickness of the material, it's not thick, it's not solid. However, the bottom areas where the calf and the feet are cast solid, to withstand the pins that run through them and into the base to anchor the figure so it doesn't fall over. Anton Smit then took us through to a section of the outdoor areas where he demonstrated, by virtue of an existing example, he demonstrated a two-piece silicone mold. So on the image on the left, you can see that he's about to place the silicone jacket over the object. And so what he's done is he's created an existing mold and he's just taken it apart and talking us through the process of making it. So that's quite an important part of it. Let's have a look at the next. This is quite a nice indication here when you see the two silicone mold pieces being put together, and the jacket on the right hand side, he's got the polyester jacket placed over the silicone to keep it in place. So the whole mold itself would have two jackets and two silicone pieces inside. Once you'd finished talking us through the two-piece mold process, making process, he then hauled out some of his planning books and his notebooks, and that was a very, very interesting exercise. He keeps two sets of notebooks. One is something that he uses in his studio office, where he's doing planning and management and working out of what the sculpture is going to be and how he's going to make it. The other one is a much, much smaller you'll see a couple of images shortly, much smaller sketch pad, if you like, which he makes himself. He makes all his, well, except for the diaries, the actual ones that he works with in his studio, those are bought, but the other little one that he does is made by himself, and it's quite small, and he carries that around wherever he goes, so that he's constantly got something on him to sketch and draw when he needs. This just gives you some idea of a little sculpture. That's a maquette that you're seeing on the right hand side there, and a little drawing on the board, and some of the source material from which that came was from 9/11, from the Ground Zero area. And then on the left-hand side, he's showing you his actual sketch pad that he draws in. Sometimes carries these around with him, but for most time they sit in the studio, and that's where he does his work. So for me, these are some of the most interesting little books that he makes and he draws in. So these are drawings, these are collages. He takes photographs and puts them in here, but these are mostly the little books that he uses to work out the finer details of his sculptures, in terms of finish, in terms of size, scale, material, construction, etc. So as you go through this, keep in mind that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a man that is constantly has his mind racing and mulling over what he's planning to do and how he's going to do it. The lip ice that I've put there just gives you an idea of how small these are. They're no more than about 10 centimeters in length, about 4.5 centimeters wide.